Hello all, it's your girl Julia again. So you may have noticed that I'm wearing the same shirt that I wore in the last video. There's actually some pretty good reasons for this. The first, and really the most important, I love this shirt. It's very comfortable. I love the color. I love the way I feel in it. And, well, currently as I'm filming this, it's about 95 degrees out, and this is a very nice, cool shirt. I'm also wearing a pretty short skirt right now, but I don't want to cause any more confusion. So while last video I was kind of serious, this one I want to have a little more fun with. I want to tackle the questions that you were probably too afraid to ask. I know for sure that I've come out to quite a few people that are rather disturbed by this, and I know they just have like a giant laundry sheet of questions, but they're worried they're gonna offend me, or they don't think they're allowed to ask those kind of questions. So, you don't have to ask those questions, I'll just tell you. So I'll probably start with the first one. Are you sure? Yes. I don't know about everybody's circumstance, but I wanted to be absolutely certain that I was transgender before I told anyone. And so if I told you, I am transgender. And I want you to believe me. Second one. How did you know? Well, it's a rather long story. I'll try to give the clip notes, as I think I already made a video on that. Well, the main thing is, it probably all started about the age of 12 or so. There I really started to experiment with the idea of being a woman. I didn't really know that at the time, but looking back on it, it seems so obvious. And then from there, it just kind of got more intense, this desire to be a woman. First, it was only for like a day, and then a week, then a month, then a year. And then it got to a point where so much time had passed, I'm just kind of like, you know what? Let's just be a woman for the rest of my life. I mean, being a man's not really doing anything for me. Let's see, do I intend to have surgery? Yes, but not for a while yet. First thing, surgery is very expensive, and it takes about a month to recover. And well, it's quite busy at the office right now, and I don't want to force anybody to figure out what to do while I'm gone for a month. And then on top of that, I don't even know if my insurance is willing to cover it or not. So I'm just sticking with hormones to see how far that'll take me. That's another thing right there. How do the hormones affect me? Well, this is a very personal question. This kind of thing affects everybody very differently. I've heard of a few people that since starting hormones, they've been unable to stop crying. There have been some people that get more angry real easily. It does a lot to your emotions. And in all honesty, maybe it's because I'm on a relatively low dose, but I haven't really noticed anything. The only thing that's really changed on the emotional side is, well, I'm just happier. I'm so happy I did this, and, well, that's kind of another thing people say, is they wish they could have done this sooner, and I will agree with them. The only thing is, looking back, I don't think I could have done this any sooner. So that's on the emotional side. Might as well go for the physical side. So, let me see if I can try to say this in a more family-friendly way. I'll start with the junk. How estrogen affects the junk. Well, from what I've noticed, it makes it smaller. And it makes it a lot less easier to get excited. But in all honesty, I don't really think this is a bad thing. There were so many times in high school I'd get excited, and I'm trying to figure out how to hide it. And another thing as well, I find there's a lot less to clean up afterwards. The only thing is, I find if I get really excited, it hurts. Like a lot. It's as if somebody's sitting on it. But who knows, maybe it'll get a little better in time. But that's about it. Like I said, that's the more PG way. If you want me to be a little more explicit, I feel a lot more comfortable doing that in the comments. So probably the big question you're thinking about is, what does it feel like to grow breasts? Quite frankly, it feels wonderful. There was times when I was going through the first puberty and when my chest hair was growing, I'm just like, yes, they're finally coming in. And I was disappointed I was still flat-chested. So that's the first thing. I feel great. I kind of wish they grew a little faster, though, because I've been denying myself of being a woman for how many years now, and well, I just want to kind of jump into it. As for the physical side, it's probably about the same as having a really bad reaction to something. Like, if you've ever seen people that have, like, seafood and then their face swells up. Kind of similar to that, I would wager. And, yeah, I gotta tell you. You would think such a thing that's feminine wouldn't... You think it wouldn't be, too crazy, but, it's very painful. The best way to explain it is, maybe if I just stick to biological terms, your mammary glands. Yeah, I'll go with that because actually calling it what it is going to have problems. So your mammary glands, men have them, but they're just not very developed. Women, they develop and they get pretty big depending on who the person is. When these start to grow, they get very sensitive. Basically, if you just brush up against something bad enough, it hurts. Like a lot. So I can definitely say, my biggest piece of advice, do not wear very tight shirts. Or if you do, wear a bra like I am right now. Maybe that'll go into my other more sensitive question. How big are they? Well, let me see what I can do about that. So this is me without the bra. I hope my mammary glands aren't showing off too much because I don't want this video to get demonetized. So yeah, I will admit that I wear a slightly bigger bra to kind of have a goal to look forward to. I like being kind of big. I don't want to be too big though. I have a friend of mine who's like, well, they're bigger than a D, I know that much. And they have just awful back pain, and I don't want to have to worry about that. But I do want to make it so when I go to the grocery store or something, it's not a question of if it's sir or ma'am. Which, even before realizing that I was transgender, I never liked the term sir. I felt like this was reserved for people that were 45 and older. And then, well, now I hate it even more now because I'm just like, come on, what more do I have to do to get the title of ma'am? Maybe that's another thing as well. So, one of the major points of confusion, and I'd be lying if I said I was kind of guilty about this as well, is the voice. This is a very masculine voice I have, despite my efforts to try and raise it. Now, I mean, I can kind of talk in a bit of a high voice, but it just feels like I'm on helium. And then if I go any higher than that, I feel like it just doesn't sound natural anymore. So most of the time I just kind of give up and go for something halfway in the middle. But I will admit, you see a feminine person, and then you hear they sound like this, you're going to be like, something is off here. So the general things I've heard about trying to raise your voice up, and I actually have seen people do this to a degree where it sounds like they were actually born female, is that the Adam's apple here. Basically, if the further you raise it up, the higher it gets. Let me see if I can demonstrate. So this is my normal speaking voice, so if I just kind of... If I hold it up a little bit, you'll see that I sound a little higher now, don't I? And then I go a little higher than that, and I sound a little higher as well. The only problem is I just sound like I'm on helium, don't I? So I just let it drop, and, well, this is what I sound like. Let's see, so we were on the subject of what the hormones do. Well, you know that men are particularly hairy, especially in areas that are not feminine, like the chest, the underarms, and the face. Now, I have heard to some degree that being on hormones long enough, you don't have to shave as much. I still have to shave every day. And even then, I can still see a little bit of 5 o'clock shadow after I do so. Now, I do know that a manual razor is going to cut a lot better, but who has the time? In fact, I can even say that for my legs as well. I go for an electric razor. Well, the manual one honestly makes it feel a lot smoother and makes it so you don't have to shave as long. I'm going to say the first time I did it, well, it was still kind of thick, so it was like I had brown socks on. It took me like 4 hours combined. And plus one of the other things to go for as well. Let me see if I can try to show this without being too obscene. There is a, you can see there's kind of a bit of a red spot here. When I was shaving one time, I took quite a big chunk of skin there, and the bleeding would not stop for a good 3 days. So that is another reason I like to go for electric as opposed to manual. In terms of my arms and my hands. Yeah, obviously with an electric too. I have shaved with a manual for the arms, and quite frankly it's a lot easier to shave your arms than it is to shave your legs. But at the same time, I mean, you got like major arteries in your wrists, and I don't want to accidentally cut that, so I go for electric. So that's kind of another subject in itself, is do the hormones affect this hair growth? Well, maybe I'm just getting more used to shaving it, or maybe it's the hormones working their magic, but I find I don't have to shave my legs or my arms as much. I will admit it does get kind of annoying how maybe in like a week or two I'll just kind of look at it and be like, oh come on, that doesn't look like skin anymore, you can see the stubble coming up. Just kind of petty annoyances. Now, that's kind of another thing as well. People talk about laser hair removal. I've heard good things and I've heard bad things. I've heard some people say that it works fantastically. I've heard some people say it's really expensive, but yet the hair still comes back. So, it's anybody's guess, but most people tell me that electrolysis is the best way to do it, but where am I going to find one of those? I mean, you can find laser hair removal in a lot of different places, but electrolysis, I think you need a specialized technician to be able to do such a thing, and also very expensive. Another thing to mention as well is I heard that when you're on hormones, you don't really get as sweaty. Maybe this is the case, but if it's a really hot and humid day, I still get pretty sweaty. Maybe not as much as before, but it's hard to be able to keep track of such a thing. And also, I can definitely see why Elizabethan women were known to just faint for no reason. I mean, I'm just kind of wearing this, and sometimes I still get lightheaded from it. So I cannot imagine walking around outside with a full-fledged gown on. I'm pretty sure I would just drop dead in the street. In fact, there's a few times even I get up from, say, a chair too quickly, and I'm like, oh, the room's spinning a little bit. Okay. And then you're good. So another thing to also keep in mind is, I'm not sure if this goes for everybody, is you will probably get a little lightheaded if you're on a T blocker or an estrogen regimen. But this has definitely been the case for me, is, well, I get constipated from the medication. Which is weird, because when I talk to the doctor about it, it seems more patients have the other problem with taking this medication. So who knows, maybe that's just a little bit of biology here and there. I guess probably the last thing to mention as well is, while I did talk about emotions pretty much being the same, there are a few things that are very different. If anybody calls me cute or beautiful or any sort of really gender-affirming phrase like that, I just melt. I just all of a sudden just go, oh, well, thank you. Or even other times I'm just like, no, don't look at me. I'm not pretty. I would have never had these problems before. Of course, now I actually care what I look like, so I'd say this is a good thing. So yeah, those are my more embarrassing and intimate questions. If you have any more you'd like to ask, go right ahead. Like I said, I feel a lot more comfortable being candid in the comments than I am in this video. After all, you gotta worry about getting blocked. Well, till next time, be yourself, no matter who that is.